of the land. We acknowledge that Clearview Township is located within the boundaries of Treaty 18, the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Teonatani, Wendat, and is the home of many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples as part of an intricate nationhood that reaches across Turtle Island. At this time of truth and reconciliation, we welcome the opportunity to work together towards new understandings and new relationships and ask for guidance in all that we do. You've all read the minutes from last month, June 11th, my birthday. I became old, just saying. Any issues with the minutes as they are printed? Can I get a motion to accept said minutes? A seconder? All in favor? Carried. Any declaration of pecuniary interest in the 4 files that we are about to discuss today? Seeing none, we don't have to kick anybody out. Life is pretty good. The Committee of Adjustment today will consider 3 minor variants and 1 consent application scheduled under public hearings. The Planning Act requires that a public hearing be held before the Committee of Adjustment decides whether or not to pass a consent or a minor variance. The public hearing serves 2 purposes. First, to present to the Committee of Adjustment and the public the details and background to the application, and second, to receive comments from the public and agencies before a decision is made. For each application, the Secretary-Treasurer will summarize the proposal and correspondence on file. We will motion it to put it on the floor, and then planning staff to my right, your left, will provide the opportunity to make a presentation, followed by presentations from the public in favor or against the proposal. Over to you, Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick housekeeping item for anybody going up front to use the microphones, or for us also, just to make sure that they're on so our friends at home can hear us.
Perfect.
Notice of the statutory public hearing for these applications was circulated in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act RSO 1990, Chapter P13. Notice for these applications was posted on the subject properties on or before June 23rd, 2025, which was at least 14 days prior to the hearing. Notice was delivered to property owners within 60 meters of the subject properties and circulated by email to those persons, departments, and agencies likely to have an interest in the applications. Notice was also posted to the township website. Included with each notice was a legal description of the property and a description of the proposed changes.
Thank you very much. Our first file, minor variance file 25-A12. Madam Secretary, can you read the motion?
I can. Thank you, Chair. Minor variance file 25-A12. Here is a key map of the site. Do we have no? Thank you, Emma.
You're just reading the recommendations.
What's that?
You're just reading the recommendation, so we can put it on motion on the floor. The recommendation to accept or not?
No, aren't I reading? I'm reading the file.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, here is the slide. Comments were received from the Public Works Department and Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority Stormwater Protection Officer. Next slide, please. The staff recommendation is that the Committee of Adjustment of the Township of Clearview hereby approves minor variance number 25-A12 with conditions on the basis that it meets the 4 tests in accordance with the Planning Act. 1, that notwithstanding section 2.6.1.2, the detached accessory building shall otherwise comply with all other applicable provisions of the zoning bylaw. 2, that the detached accessory building may be substantially and proportionally in conformity with the dimensions and location as set out on the application and sketches submitted and approved by the committee by Lloyd Hunt Architect dated May 27, 2025. 3, that the detached accessory building be no closer to the front lot line than 25.5 meters.
Number 4. I can read it. Number four, that the applicant obtains an NVCA permit and provides the required wet flood proofing at the time of building permit application.
Thank you.
No problem. All right, do we have a motion to put that recommendation on the floor? Seconded by? All right. Planning staff, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just introduce the file as 36 Caroline Street West, and it's application 25A12, Haste. Anyways. So I'm just going to go over the purpose and the effect of the application. So the purpose is to vary a section 2.6.1.2 of the zoning bylaw to allow an accessory building to be built closer to the front lot line than the front wall of the primary building on the site. And the effect of the application is to permit the construction of a detached garage for personal use. Lori has kindly gone through our recommendation. So I'll maybe skip down to just show the site plan for the property. You'll see that there is an existing detached structure that will be replaced by, and that's in this little red, there's a little red box on the site plan. And the proposed new building is the gray, darker box there. So the idea is to tear down the existing building and replace it with a larger building. It is in line with the porch of the property. So the understanding is that the new building will not go any further in front of that porch. Next slide, please. These are some elevation drawings of the proposed new structure. And next slide, please. Just go through the site photos. Just photos on this slide showing to the west on Caroline Street, east on the Caroline, the fact that the sign for the notice was posted. And then just existing structures in the area. So viewing from the west of the neighbor's house, the neighboring garage, which actually is quite a bit closer to the front property than what is proposed of the application here, and then the neighboring garage. And then the proposed location of the existing structure, which will be replaced. So garage from the street facing, and then close up, and then, aligned with the edge of the porch. And as already stated by Lori and motion on the floor, the recommendation is for approval, and that is with a number of conditions. I don't think I need to go over those again, but that concludes the presentation from planning staff.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone representing the Haste family here or this file? Can you make sure that the light is glowing on that?
There.
There
That
we go.
better? Oh, that's much better. Okay.
Our friends on YouTube, we have a few followers, would be happy to hear what you have to say.
I'm Emily Bernard. I'm a landscape architect and architectural designer. I work with Lloyd Hunt Architect, who is online today as well. We're the authorized agent representing the homeowners here today. I don't have any further comments, but I'm happy to answer any questions or comments from the council or public.
Perfect.
Mhm.
Is there any questions from the committee members to either the planning staff or the representative for this file? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could you explain to those that may not know, Rosalind, what wet flood proofing is, please?
Thank you through the chair. That would obviously be a question for the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority. That
Okay.
was a condition that came in last minute, and that was why we didn't have it in our scripts and so on. So that would be a question to direct to the Conservation Authority.
Yeah, I think in their description, part of it is that we have the correct elevation for the garage, that it's above their what they've designated as their flood table. That's a portion of it, but we'll clarify with them at that stage. We have to do a full grading plan for this as part of the permit requirement.
That's fine. I knew what it was, but I just wanted to make sure everybody else did.
Perfect. All right, is there any other questions? Seeing none, do we take a vote on the motion that is before us so far? All in favor? Carried. There is a 20-day appeal period and your conditions are outlined before you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Cheers. All right, screaming right along with minor variance file 25-A13, Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Chair. Minor variance filed 25-A13, 16 Fawn Crescent, Valente. Here is a key map of the site. Thank you, Emma. Next slide, please. Rosalind, do you want me to read that part? Okay. So I have that part down here. So staff recommendation is that the Committee of Adjustment of the Township of Clearview hereby approves minor variance 25-A13 pertaining to lands at 16 Fawn Crescent on the basis that it meets the 4 tests in accordance with the Planning Act, subject to the following conditions. 1, that the detached accessory building be substantially and proportionally in conformity with the dimensions and location as set out on the application. Building renderings and concept plans submitted by the applicant dated May 28, 2025 and approved by the committee. 2, that the detached accessory building be no closer to the front lot line than 15.25 meters. And 3, that a lot grading and drainage plan be required as part of a building permit submission in accordance with the township's lot grading drainage policy.
Thank you very much.
Comments were received from the Public Works Department and Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority Stormwater Protection Officer.
Perfect. Can we get a motioner and seconder to put that on the floor? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, it is on the floor. Over to the planning staff for comments and the rest of the file, please.
Thank you, Chair. So as indicated by my colleague, the application is 25A13 and it's subject to 16 Fawn Crescent. In terms of the purpose and effect, so the applicant is seeking to vary section 2612, which is to allow an accessory building, and in this case, a detached garage, to be located close to the front lot line than that of the primary building, as well as increase the size of the gross floor area of that structure from a maximum size of 64 square meters to 109 square meters. And again, the intent is to allow for the construction of detached garage on the subject lands. 2 slides down, please. Yep, perfect. So here's just a concept plan, a little bit tricky to see from the distance here. On the kind of the right-hand side in blue, that's the applicant's existing dwelling there. To the kind of southwest corner is location of the proposed attached garage. And then again, at the bottom of the sketch would be 16 Fawn Crescent, just kind of give you some context. Next slide. Here are some renderings provided by the applicant of the proposed detached accessory garage on the site. Next slide, please. And then here's some site photos. So the one on the right, I was just kind of confirming that the notice was provided in accordance with the Planning Act. And then the photo on the left is a photo from Fawn Crescent of the subject lands. You can see that the existing dwelling does have some screening from existing mature vegetation located along the frontage of the property. Next slide. And then here's a bit more of a close-up and kind of shift down from where the first photo was taken. So you can see that the red box locates the approximate location of where the new detached garage is to go, with the photo on the left being taken on the existing driveway. So you can see the applicant's house to the right, their existing dwelling as well as attached garage, with the detached garage going in approximately the location of the red square. And I believe that concludes the presentation. I think that's just been duplicated, so I wouldn't, that's fine. So planning staff are here to answer any questions that you may have as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nick. Is there anyone here representing the Valente file? Yes, sir. Step up to the microphone.
It's green. Okay. Oh, well, okay.
Do you have anything to add to the file that we do not already have before us?
I don't.
Okay, but you're here ready to answer questions.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Committee, is there any questions of either the planning staff or the gentleman in front of us representing this file? Seeing none. Do we have we vote on the file before us to approve it? All in favor, sir?
Perfect. Thank you.
Carried. There's a 20-day appeal period, at which time Lori or Colin, or the planning staff will become your best friend. You do understand the conditions that are there currently, right?
I do.
Perfect. You have a great day, sir.
There's just one question.
Okay.
In regards to that lot grading plan, is there anyone in the area that the Clearview Township has used like multiple times and who knows that we're not gonna have any problems with, and they can come do it on my lot and then I can submit it?
Go ahead, sir.
Through the chair, you can use somebody like Tatum's, Crozier, any of the companies that deal with that.
Okay. Is it possible that maybe Nick can email me their contacts?
Sure.
Through the chair. Yeah, so staff typically can't recommend any one company, but we can provide you the list of
Okay.
engineering companies that the township has
okay,
received
perfect.
applications from before.
That sounds good.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Does
thank
that
you.
answer your question?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Have a good day, guys.
You too. Moving right along to minor variance file 25-A14. Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Chair. Minor variance file 25-A14, 8 and 10 Francis Street East, Water First. Here is a key map of the site. Next slide, please. Comments were received from the Public Works Department and Ottawa Saga Valley Conservation Authority Stormwater Protection Officer. The staff recommendation is that the Committee of Adjustment of the Township of Clearview hereby denies minor variance 25-A14 in part for sections 2.15.1 driveway width and 2.15.6.1 for the commercial structure and associated site works pertaining to lands at 8 and 10 Francis Street East. Creemore, on the basis that it does not meet the 4 tests in accordance with the Planning Act, specifically does not conform to the official plan, does not meet the general intent of the zoning bylaw, and is not desirable for the development of the land and is not minor in nature. Also approves minor variance 25-A14 in part for the commercial structure and associated site works pertaining to lands at 8 and 10 Francis Street East, Creemore, on the basis that it meets the 4 tests in accordance with the Planning Act, subject to the following conditions. 1, that notwithstanding section 3.20.2 D, 3.20.2 S, 2.13.2, 2.14.2, 2.14.4, 2.15.1, aisle width, and 2.15.2, the commercial structure and associated site work shall otherwise comply with all other applicable provisions of the Township of Clearview zoning bylaw 0654. 2, that the commercial structure and associated site works be substantially and proportionally in conformity with the dimensions as set out on the application and sketches submitted Schedule C and D and approved by the committee. 3, that the pursuant to Section 41 of the Planning Act and Township Bylaw 24-64, the owner be required to obtain site plan approval to facilitate the proposed development, and that the site plan includes the following. A, that the site plan maintains and or adds the vegetation buffer and fencing in conformance with the zoning conformity 0654, section 2.13 to the satisfaction of the Township of Clearview's Planning Department. B, that the applicant provides cash in lieu of parking in conformance to the bylaw 00-37 as a condition of site plan approval and recorded through the implementing site agreement. And C, that the site plan and implementing site plan agreement address the engineering requirements, including an engineered lot grading plan applied to the proposed development to the satisfaction of the Township of Clearview's Public Works Department. 4, that the applicant obtains an NVCA permit and provides the required dry floodproofing at the time of building permit application.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. All right, so can I get a motion and a seconder to put this on the table as written? Yes, sir. Seconder? To put this on. If there is something that we find in the presentation that we do not like, we will amend said motion. All right, it is on the table. Over to the planning staff to carry us through this lovely file.
Thank you, Chair. As stated, this is for file 25A14 on 8 and 10 Francis Street East for Water First. And the purpose and the effect of the application. They are looking to vary a few of the provisions of the bylaws. So maximum front yard is going to be varied by 4 meters. The parking setback from a residential lot, north and east lot lines is proposed to be varied by 2 meters. The minimum landscaping screen, north and east lot lines, proposed to be varied by 2 meters. Number of parking spaces, so required was 34. They are proposing to provide 20. With a variance of 14. Loading spaces, they are required to have 2 and are providing 1, so a variance of 1. Maximum entrance width is required to be 9 meters. They are proposing 17 meters, so a variance of 8 meters. Maximum number of entrances required is 1, proposed is 2. So again, looking for a variance of an additional entrance. Required parking surface is required to be asphalted or hard surfaced. And they are proposing gravel. The variance would be to permit gravel, and minimum aisle width is required to be 7 meters. And it is proposed at a certain location on the site to be 4 meters, which is a requested variance of 3.5 meters. The recommendation was read and is on the table. I will skip to the site plan that just shows sort of the existing structure. Proposed new building is in pink. And then there's also a proposed sort of second phase or another building, which is directly to the back of the pink building or to the north. And this sort of outlines where parking spaces will be and the general circulation of the site. Floor plans of the building. Again, will show sort of how the inside of the structure as a 2-story building will be laid out. And site photos, so looking west on Francis Street, east, sign was posted in accordance with the Planning Act. Just showing existing commercial office buildings and accessory buildings to the back, and other items on the property. This slide just sort of indicates where the proposed building will be built, sort of in that open area. And as noted on the plan, the existing vegetation on the north lot line is to be maintained and replaced with a fence to accommodate parking. Existing vegetation and fencing on the east lot line is also to be maintained. Again, proposed parking areas just showing on the site, variance for the reduced aisle width. So this is where one of the loading spaces is proposed. So just giving you an idea, existing parking. And then just showing entrances. So existing entrance to be moved and widened, and then increase setback for proposed building. second entrance is existing. And just to give you an example of some of the things happening around the area, so Foodland entrance is pointed out here is to be 12.5 meters. All of these lands are asphalted. And then the commercial entrance, 8.5 meters adjacent to it. And again, recommendation has been provided, is on the table. That concludes the presentation. Here for any questions.
Thank you very much. I have one question before I move on. You had a slide up there that showed all the proposed and variances all the way back at the beginning. Keep going, keep going. Right there. Purpose and effect. Ooh, slide back. That is the section that we're approving, correct?
Through to the chair. So this is just describing what the application was requesting. What you have on the table is the recommendation that Lori provided you, and I'm happy to go through that again if you like. It is looking at it details all of these requests. It's just that some are being recommended to not be approved, and there are some that are recommended to be approved.
All right. Can we clarify that slide then as to which ones we're being asked to approve and which ones you are recommending that we don't approve?
Right. So the 2.15.6, the required parking surface, we're asking that it not be approved. And I think the other one, yeah, maximum width. So to 15.1 maximum entrance width, which is required to be 9 meters in the bylaw, and they're looking to be 17 meters. We're recommending that those two. So yeah,
All right. Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
You have a question, sir?
I just wanted to clarify that. Or is that 215.1 aisle width?
No, that's entrance width, 2.15.1 maximum entrance width. Aisle width is another thing, which is, oh, I see the numbers are the same.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Our
so,
media lady underlined the two above on the slide.
yeah, the aisle width we're recommending be approved.
Okay.
Thank you for that clarification, Rosalind. And
All
there is-
within the same table in the zoning bylaws, so it's a bit confusing, sorry.
No problem. Good day, sir.
Mr. Chair, committee members, my name is Andrew Pascuzzo. I'm a registered professional planner with my firm in Collingwood. I'm here today on behalf of Water First. Water First is a company that operates out of Creemore on this property. Attendance with me today is Mr. John Miller. He is the founder of Water First, as well as Jill Bartley. She's the senior director from Water First. I've also got Mr. Steve Sapinka here. He's the architectural design consultant on the file. And then finally rounding out the team is Mr. Doris Casello. He's a professional engineer with Tatham Engineering. We are all here today to convince you to approve the last two requests for relief that staff are not currently supporting. So I'm going to do my best to convince you of that, and so are my colleagues here today. So first off, Water First is an existing commercial business, as I said, operating out of Creemore. John may do a little bit of background on them, but basically they're a company that provides education and water training for Indigenous communities throughout the country. They have an existing office space and equipment storage on site in the current building. They are expanding and their business is growing. And they have proposed an expansion to the building, 2 expansions potentially. Staff have asked them to provide what their overall plan may look like many years out so that they're not coming back for additional site plan applications. Keep in mind that the minor variance that we're here with you today is to support an eventual site plan application in order to get site plan approval for the site and get a building permit, as well as we require an NVCA permit for flood proofing as well. So we are also here to acknowledge a number of existing building and parking provisions that are existing on the site. And we're acknowledging these deficiencies in order that they conform with the zoning bylaw. So I've reviewed the staff report. I understand that staff is supporting the majority of the minor variance we've requested. And there are 2 items left. And Rosalind has indicated what those are for clarity. In a nutshell, we're asking for a gravel parking lot instead of an asphalt parking. And then the second item is we're asking for an increase in the entrance width from the required 9 meters in your bylaw all the way up to 17 meters, which is an 8-meter increase. So the first comment I'll make is that before we leave here today, I would ask that the committee approve the minor variances that have been recommended to be approved within the staff report, at the very least. I'm not going to get into the details of them. There's been a lot of back and forth with staff, and we've come to the conclusion, and staff has, that they support those. So I'd like you guys to approve those. I hope there isn't any questions on those, but I'm happy to answer, and our team will as well too. So that's step 1. And obviously then we're here to request that the committee approve the increased entrance size as well as the gravel parking area. And as I've indicated, we're going to try our best to convince you. So here's the justification. We're proposing to the entrance width be increased because if it's only 9 meters, the way the site plan is aligned, the vehicles will not be able to maneuver and back into the proposed 3 garage bays that would come off of the north side of Francis. They would have to back in irregularly shaped and kind of slide in. We've looked at the site plan a number of different ways, and unfortunately, this is the only way that it functions. So that's the requirement. That's the need for the request. We also, it's my respectful submission that there are many other entrances within the village of Creemore, as well as across your township, where entrances are wider than 9. Now, I recognize that this is a newer provision that's been put into the bylaw, and many of those situations are legal non-complying. But I feel that, my professional opinion is that in this specific situation, it should be supported to allow the garage bays to have direct frontage off of Francis Street. So that's the entrance. And then with regard to the gravel parking lot, it's important to indicate that this is a charity, and obviously they're trying to reduce expenses as much as possible. They could use the monies elsewhere. I believe that John will comment on the potential savings of the difference between asphalt and gravel. We understand that Public Works has a direct concern about the gravel, and their concern seems to be that the gravel will be pushed off-site onto the right-of-way, onto the road, and it will cause issues with the traveling right-of-way. And so our proposal is that whatever way possible, we will maintain the gravel on the site, and no gravel will leave the property. There will have to be a site plan agreement down the line, which my client would enter into with the township, and at that time, there will need to be obviously some sort of input within the agreement that requires my clients to maintain gravel on their property. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Miller, John Miller, he's obviously got a few words to say, and then I will have some closing remarks after that. Thank you.
Welcome, John.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. And so I'm John Miller. I'm the executive director and founder at Water First. We actually founded Water First out of my office that was overlooking 124 in Duntroon. It was about 15 years ago, and then we moved to Creemore shortly after. But we operated about a year at Duntroon. Our mandate is to address water challenges in Indigenous communities in Canada through education, training, and meaningful collaboration. It's, you know, the sort of so-called teach a man to fish approach. You know, we're reminded of that often. About 15% of Indigenous communities in Canada are still under some form of water advisory, which I'm sure we can all agree is unacceptable on a variety of big levels. There's a lot of groups in Canada, groups of folks in Canada who are underrepresented in the sciences. And those groups include minority populations, and Indigenous communities are no exception to that. One of the impacts of that kind of reality in the South is that, you know, there's a lot of white folks in technical jobs, often white males in technical jobs. One of the impacts of that reality in Northern Indigenous communities is that there's not enough folks to run the water treatment plant, which is inevitably based on Western science technology. It's just, it is that industry is definitely based on Western science. So there's a dependency on Southern technical people and organizations and businesses in Indigenous communities. There's not enough folks to run the plants. And, you know, I think it's really important to say there are amazing Indigenous operators who are doing incredible work every day in Indigenous communities in their water plants, and they're doing the best they can with the resources that they have. And there's also broad agreement that there needs to be more Indigenous operators. There's this very significant shortage. We often see three scenarios. There's other scenarios, but we see these three a lot. Scenarios where there's only one water operator and a water plant that should have three. And often that individual hasn't left their community for more than 24 hours for about a year and a half because they can't leave the water plant unattended for any prolonged period of time. We also see retirees who are running a water treatment plant years after they could have retired because there's no one to hand the keys to. And also we see situations where there's outside, like third-party entities that are running the water treatment plant on behalf of the community. That can be an effective short-term Band-Aid, but it's not the ultimate solution. So a bit more about Water First and the scale of our operations is we have about 55 staff right now. 2/3 of our staff are remote. And that's partly because, you know, anyone with a water science background, water science training background in our region, if they're looking for work, we've already hired them. And so we're, you know, as we continue to expand our staff, we need to look further afield. And so we have staff between Vancouver to Montreal, most of the major city centers in between. About 1/3 of our staff are hybrid, so that means they're within a commuting distance of Creemore. And since COVID, and this is sticking, we're asking them to come in 2 days a week, and on average, that's the main way that we kind of function our staffing. We've had about 100 community partnerships to date, from coast to coast to coast across the country in most of the regions across Canada. We're in talks with about 40 more Indigenous communities across the country in a variety of different regions. And, you know, essentially the phone is ringing off the hook. We're in a very uncrowded space as an organization. There aren't a lot of entities out there who do what we do, and especially not at the scale that we do it. So the essence of this and what this application is a part of is we're trying to respond to that as quickly and as effectively as we possibly can. Again, you know, we're the phone's ringing off the hook. It has been for quite some time, and you know, we're trying to respond. I'll leave the technical stuff to the technical people who know that realm a lot better than I do. But what I can say on behalf of the charity is that, and as Andrew was saying as well, like, we're trying to spend as much as we can on our training programs and as little as we can on other stuff. And if I give a speech to a Rotary Club, to a church group, you name it, one of the first questions I'm asked, and I should be, is how much do you spend on your programs and how much do you spend on administration fundraising, right? And we should be scrutinized by that. The upshot, particularly in terms of gravel versus asphalt, asphalt's going to cost us between $50,000 to $60,000 more than gravel will. And as a charity, that's one of our main considerations here. That amounts to about half of the training equipment that we would purchase in order to work with 14 different new trainees, new operators from 7 different First Nations. We would, very much hope to be in a position where we're using that funding in order to purchase training equipment as opposed to purchasing asphalt so that we can stay focused on what we do and keep donors' dollars supporting our work and our mandate. Regarding the driveway width, as Andrew has pointed out, there's a ton of examples in the village for sure. Some even owned by the township and one was paved just last year. And if there are reasons for that, that's great, understood. There are reasons for this as well. We are simply trying to back domestic trailers into 2 out of the 3 garage bays. And if we shrink the driveway to the 9 meters, we have to do kind of technically impossible hairpin turns with a trailer in order to try to get a trailer into the garage bay. The inability to do that means we're loading trailers in rain, in snow, in you name it, becomes really challenging. We're unable to, as a water organization, we have a boat. We can't store a boat in the garage as well. So, that's really the essence of it. We started with a wider driveway. We've heard the township's concerns around the width. We've proposed a compromise where we're sacrificing one of the garage bays, unable to go into the one that's on your right there and accepting that. But if we go down to 1 or none, there's very significant operational impediments for us as an organization. And it essentially gets in the way of the growth that we're trying to accomplish and smooth, efficient and safe operations.
I do have one question. I come from a rather logistics background. So I just want to be clear on what you're trying to back up to these garage doors.
Yes.
When you say a domestic trailer and truck, are we talking a pickup truck and a single axle, 2-axle trailer?
Single axle. Think of, we sent one out last week, the smallest covered U-Haul that you can rent, like probably 8 feet long, single axle, shorter than a person. And our boat is a 16-foot aluminum boat that we would like to be able to reverse into one of the garage bays.
Because I truly understand that 27 feet, I'm old, I work in feet, 27 feet might be a little difficult for me to teach someone to back a tractor trailer into. But 17 meters, I could probably put half a Walmart staff in that. So I'm just, that's why I'm looking for some reference is all.
Sure. And the 17 meters is the width of the driveway so that we can park on the strip to the left. And that's so that we can still access 2 out of the 3 of the garage bays with a straight shot, ideally, is what we're trying to achieve.
All right, is that the end of your presentation? All right, we're back to Andrew.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I'll conclude here. I just wanted to, thanks for your comments, John, appreciate it. And I'm not sure, it doesn't appear like there's any neighbors, but at this point, if possible, we'd like to hear from the committee members prior to them making a decision on this. We obviously don't want you to refuse the application, and if there's any additional information we can provide, that would be helpful. We're obviously all here to answer questions, but we'd like an opportunity before you make a decision. And then finally, if possible, I'm going to make a process recommendation, which would be that you split the decision into a few steps, which the first would be is if you could approve the variances, as I've indicated, that staff already supports. and then make separate decisions on the gravel asphalt issue and a separate decision on the entrance. Just for clarity on those three items, that would be helpful. And then also if staff can provide some clarity on whether there will be a requirement for cash in lieu for the parking. My understanding is based on the variance that it won't be required, but that's important for us to note, and one thing that I haven't clarified yet. So those are my comments. As I said, we're hoping to respond to any comments or concerns you may have.
Is there anyone with any questions for either the applicant or the planning staff? Yes, sir.
Well, you figured I was going to ask.
I did. I have a whole list in front of me, but I figured you'd.
Through the chair to Mr. Pacuzzo. Couple things. Do we have any neighbors' input? I didn't hear that. Sorry.
Through to the chair, I do not believe anyone has provided any public comments.
Okay, thank you. And then secondly, how much cash in lieu are we requesting?
Thank you, through to the chair. So again, I think the condition is that it would be, again, through the minor variance process. It's not really enforceable at this stage. It's really enforceable at the site plan stage. And so it's an awareness for yourselves. And the bylaw itself says that it's $2,000 per parking space being varied. And that is a bylaw that's been around since, I think, 2000 or something. So presumably it would be cash that would then go into a fund. And when there's an opportunity for the township to find another spot for additional parking, because again, as we know, not that you have an anticipation that you will leave, but the idea is that when you redevelop sites like this, it's the opportunity to, if you're asking for this request to vary the parking, it's an opportunity for the township to, because, you may grow more, you may leave this space, and then there'll be another use in there. And so that other use presumably would need those additional parking. And so it would be sort of irresponsible for us to not try to find another way for parking in Creemore. And we already know there is a bit of a shortage. We hear this all the time from the BIA. So the idea is that it's a bylaw funding process, in that money that we collect will be used at some point to create additional parking. And so recently there was a project done for the Creemore Medical Center. So town staff did create some additional parking back there. That's where that money will come from, because again, to try to get it from taxpayers or just from normal budgeting processes it's a bit of an ask to ask the rest of the township to fund your ability not to provide those parking spaces. So that's sort of the logistics behind why we ask for
So you're
and
saying
it's a
that-
Planning Act bylaw.
But you're saying that's not refundable? So there's 20 parking spaces at 2,000 a parking space. Is that what we're saying?
That, and who knows, that may change by the time that that is what's in effect today.
Wow.
And
Okay.
it's not non-refundable, because the money will get used to build a parking space at some point, like a new parking area in Creemore, right? So the township will have to buy the land, they'll have to prepare it, right? Because we're likely going to have to tear down buildings, we'll have to prepare it, bring in gravel, pave it, everything else. So that's the whole point of a parkland dedication or cash in lieu of parking space bylaw.
Rosalind,
Correct.
can we clarify that? This bylaw is new to me, but it's a bylaw, so that's no big deal. Is he paying for the 14 spots that he's not getting, or the 20 spots that he is making available?
So the whole point is that they can't provide the parking that they need for the site. The request has come in to vary that parking space requirement, which is 34. They are asking for 14 spaces to be forgiven.
Right.
Right.
So the township is asking for $28,000 for that variance?
Yep. Well, no, not as part of the variance, as part of the site plan process. So this is just highlighting that when they apply for their site plan, one of the conditions of the site plan approval will be that they go forward and fulfill the condition of the minor variance.
All right.
And the bylaw at the time, right? Like it's a standalone thing. It's, everyone's subject to it when they can't provide the parking and when they're asking for relief.
Fully understand. I was just asking on which number it was based on.
Yeah.
The 14 or the 20?
Yeah. The 20 they were providing on site.
Yes, sir.
Through the chair, are there any examples in Clearview's history that because this is a charity that they could forgive that request or that part of the bylaw?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay, thank you.
It's different from like sometimes development charges are forgiven. But not this, not that I know of. But again, you wouldn't be the body to
Yeah.
be asked that anyways. This would be a more of a council decision if requested. Yeah. And yeah.
I'm just looking for the specifics on the cost of the site plan, given that the second item on the list, or the two items on the list, one is a costly paved parking lot to us. So I'm just looking for all the details so I can make a decent decision. Yes, sir.
Through the chair, is there also a development charge associated with the lot that's going to be tied into the lot to make it one? Or is that forgiven?
Well, that's what I said. The development charges, there may be leniency.
So they have a development charge because they have a separate parcel, but they're going to combine two parcels, but they'll be charged a development charge
It has
for the
nothing to do
vacant.
with parcels. It has to do with the buildings, right? So it's done at the building permit stage and it's based on the use and so on. So development charges bylaws have exemptions. And I
Yeah.
believe actually Mr. Miller has already come to council too.
But I thought one of the lots was vacant. Is the one lot to the east or west not vacant? And you're combining both lots?
Yeah, but they're looking to build on it.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
there's a development charge associated with that is my point.
Yes.
Thank you. Is that 65 grand?
I'm not certain what that is, sorry. Because it'll be based on an institutional use, possibly commercial, I'm not sure. But again, I think you're in the works of working with the finance department on that, right? So potentially. And council will have to make that decision, so.
Thank you, Rosalind. I do have a couple other questions. Is there a timeline at which you look down the road and could foresee paving this parking lot? Or is that funds, 60, 70,000 bucks to pave it, that you would like to put towards the operational side of your charity? Like they're gone, there is no timeline to pave this. You would like it to remain gravel for the rest of time, eternity.
You want to, yeah. Thanks for the question. And it's my belief that our perspective would be consistent on it, right? Like we're still going to be scrutinized as a charity as long as we exist as a charity for the amount of funding we put toward our programs versus other things.
All right.
I would expect that preference to.
I'm just looking for any wiggle room I can. Thank you. All right, in my next question, given that you have asked for this to be gravel in perpetuity, and you've managed to put your business in probably the most, contentious of our urban areas in Clearview Township, is there a possibility to accept a condition to sweep any of the gravel? I know you said that you would be willing to keep the gravel on the property, but if we put it in there as a condition to sweep it on a daily basis, is that a possibility that you would accept? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
than a month ago. We just hired an equipment manager who manages the facility, manages our equipment, which will be going in and out of the three-car garage. Yes, so and we recently hired someone.
Because I do understand where there is less clean industry, let's call them that, gravel pits and whatnot, that they must maintain that the roads in front of their entrances be clean all the time. So I'm just spitballing ideas here is what I'm doing. So thank you for the yes. Yes, sir.
I actually have, through the chair, sorry, I actually have another suggestion. What if you paved just like a 15-foot area at from the road in so that you have a berm across in the way of that? Like that to me would solve the issue. That's just another thought.
So we have had that discussion as a team, that as a compromise,
Yes.
that one option would be to pave to the property line.
Yes.
So everything within the right of way from the road into the property line would be paved, and then everything on private property would be gravel.
That's right.
The position we've taken as a team is we would like to have gravel on everything.
The reason being,
Cost. It's still gonna be costly to put the asphalt in for that section, right? I'm not sure how much it will be, but
wow.
there'll be a figure there. Whether it's 5 to 10 grand.
Wow. Okay.
Rosalind, you had a rebuttal to my sweeping thought.
Just a statement. So thank you through to the chair, and I'll just remind the committee about the statements written by the planner on the file, and the fact that, in our opinion, getting rid of pavements in this kind of manner or giving relief is really not the Committee of Adjustments role. It should really be considered by council, because again, it has implications to a lot of other properties in the township, right? So it's not just that, you know, Water First is obviously, you know, a charitable organization and absolutely doing great work, and, you know, but I do feel like you should be reading the staff report and heeding that we have had other discussions with other companies, and really the process would be to come to council through a zoning amendment as opposed to through this process of minor variance. So the other thing I will say is that we have looked at the site plan stage and worked with people to phase in the paving process. So when you go through your site plan process, we will work with you, obviously, on a phasing plan. And so it doesn't mean that you have to do it all at once, right? So that obviously we could work with you in that regard. And I think the goal is obviously to keep the dust down. It's also because you're in an urban center, right? I mean, you're not outside of, on the outskirts of Creemore where maybe, you know, that would be acceptable, but you're right down in the middle of Creemore, in the heart of it. And so it's a requirement in the bylaw for a reason, and most commercial spaces have to comply with that. So I'll just bring that to committee's attention, and yeah.
Thank you,
Thank
Rosalind.
you.
Sir?
Thank you to the chair, to Rosalind on that very point. Then on a question on that point, your belief is that it would have to go to council for the gravel as opposed to pavement, but you're not discussing the width of the driveway?
The width of the driveway could also be considered by council if that was but it's just that we've had recent, like, other discussions with other companies that we are also dealing with, that have looked at the requirement for paving. And again, it's a pretty substantive requirement, and it has implications to other properties and other, you know, sort of uses in the township. So.
Thank you. Question regarding parking spaces on the proposed gravel driveway or parking area. What, you said, did give me a number for the number of employees you've got, but some work off site. Can you give me an idea what you anticipate the number of cars to be parked to do with the business on an average day would be?
Currently 5 to 10. And, you know, our growth path from a hiring perspective is to continue the remote hiring, because there's not a lot of individuals with the skills that we need for particularly program delivery. Like I was kind of joking, not joking. We've hired most of the folks who fit the description in this region who are available. And yeah, so I think modest growth in terms of increased parking. And, you know, we got to where we are in part because of the how, and again, I might be wading into technical stuff I'm not qualified for, but it's a garage where you can put vehicles. And unfortunately, because of how the policy works, it's actually appears to be generating a need for parking. And we intend to put vehicles and equipment in there and not desks for office space, but that is actually how it's being calculated. And so that's a part of the gap, right? Is that we intend to put cars in there, but it's actually generating a need for more parking spaces as opposed to having the opposite effect. So that's, yeah, in part why we do see it as quite achievable to continue growth. And I still anticipate having unused parking. But we're again trying to find the right middle ground.
Okay, so, but your anticipation is with growth in the future that you would utilize the parking spaces that are on the proposed site plan?
Yes, as we continue to expand.
It won't be getting smaller, it'll be getting somewhat bigger, or a little bit bigger. Okay. A question, if I may, to the chair. The driveway width. So you've got two driveways proposed. One is an existing, the other one is proposed to be wider. You've explained to my satisfaction why you wanted the wider driveway. So, but if I'm not mistaken, the alignment would be such that you'd be backing in to two of the three bays. Does that sound right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
And I would like to point out that, and I'm sorry to cut you off.
Sorry?
A brief comment is
Yes.
we'd
Yeah.
probably be doing that once a week. You know, the volume of traffic in and out is quite modest and anticipated to remain quite modest.
That's okay. That's fine. And a question really to staff, if I may, with regard to the width of the driveway, given the list of adjustments that we're looking at, why is the driveway width a bone of contention to the township, particularly when I stand facing the property and I turn 180 degrees, and I think that the two commercial properties directly across the street are far wider than what we're asking this applicant to abide by.
Thank you, through the chair. So driveway widths are typically you try to control them in that that way you don't get traffic coming out of the site in sort of a way that's not going to conform with the right in, right out, and having left turn. So when historically some of the sites actually have no like entrances at all, it's just total pavement, and there's confusion, right? So, I mean, we're creatures of habit. We want to have a path, a clear path, right, to get in and get out of a site. So I believe it's mainly safety, right, in terms of trying to direct people in a way that will be in a safe manner, right? So the bylaw has had a maximum of 9-meter width since 2006. It's been applied pretty much consistently on new developments. So, anyway.
Does that answer your question, sir?
The answer to the question. The question, it's not, it's kind of a.
Your mic's not on.
I'm up. Just a sidebar, but yeah, another suggestion for gravel, if you were to go and be able to use gravel, is maybe a curbing that might keep it in check across the front of the property as opposed to whatever. Anyway, that's really all. That's just more of a comment.
All right, I do have a question for Roslyn. Recently, we were at we discussed with the lawyer here, referenced timelines on conditions. I understand that through the site plan, but in order to one, facilitate our job, right? And get this variance moved forward, is it within the realm to put a timeline and say, we will approve the variances, but given 5 years, you need to have this paved? Does that alter the finalization of the variance process at your end? If we were to put a timeline, let's just say we accept we grant both sides of this minor variance, but with a timeline of 5 years to have it paved. Does that mess up things on the legal your end, is what I'm trying to ask?
So thank you, Chair, for the question. I just want to be clear that I understand what you're asking. So right now, staff are recommending that the request to not pave be denied, which means that if their applicant was to come in tomorrow with their site plan, the site plan approval would have to show that there is pavement being done on the site plan.
Right. So my question is,
Right.
if we amend that to, we accept the variance of gravel for a time limit of 5 years, and at which time it must be paved, does that mess up your site plan discussions down the road based off of what we've done today?
Well, I don't know that it messes up the site plan, but what it does is it means that the applicant may not come in for their site plan for 5 years,
Ooh,
right?
ooh.
Because then they wouldn't have to worry about it. It would just be gravel, right? Because what you're saying is you're just delaying it for 5 years. And how else are you going to implement that? So I think we have to think about, is it a reasonable request that the committee do that? How are you going to enforce it?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So I think if that was how you wanted to go, then you would make it a condition of the site plan somehow, or, and I think you'd have to think about why you're asking for that.
All
Like
right.
what is it that you're trying to help with?
Well, in my head, I understand the applicant's plan, right? I'm not against said plan. But one, forcing them to pave it after having to pay for 28,000 of missing parking spaces is a totally other issue, but it's in my head. But I mean, given that there are other businesses in Creemore with gravel parking lots, I'm not seeing the gravity of the gravel versus the asphalt as much as maybe some other people on the committee are. But I'm just trying to prepare myself for whatever possibility might be suggested. Yes, sir.
Through the chair. Do you classify, this would be to Rosalind, do you classify crushed asphalt as paving?
I'm sorry, I missed that question.
Would you classify crushed asphalt as paving?
Well, I guess we'd have to look at what, like, is that permeate, like, is it?
So, it's ground up pavement.
Right,
And then you lay it down, you pack it, and it acts like gravel, but it turns hard. And it's a lot cheaper than paving.
yeah,
Probably very similar to A gravel.
but it's black.
It's black.
Again, probably would come down to what was the definition of that type of thing, right?
It has
So-
asphalt. Have you guys looked at that option?
I know we're taking up your time, Andrew. I
Sorry, we're trying to be
apologize.
supportive.
This is beyond my technical knowledge. I'm not sure whether Doris can comment on that. He's joined us virtually. But we are open to any other options.
Yeah.
For sure. And this is a nomenclature thing, and I appreciate the attention to it. Maybe Doris, I don't know, it looks like you're available.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry. Yep. Yeah, thank you for that. Definitely, we could absolutely look at that option. It didn't cross my mind, but thank you for who had mentioned that. I think it'd be a lot cheaper than the asphalt. We can get a price over to John, just for comparison, from a gravel. But it's like a crushed asphalt. Is that what you're noting?
Yep.
Yeah, which would become compressed and hard, and it would be like black like an asphalt. It would be a little bit more impervious than gravel, which is fine. We've allowed for that imperviousness as well in our design.
And there'd be no dust.
Sorry?
And there'd be no dust.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. It becomes more sealed. Absolutely. So I would just need to, get those numbers to John. It definitely would be much cheaper than laying asphalt itself. I think that could be doable if it could be fitted in. That would be good.
I can give you some numbers to
Mhm.
call.
Thank you.
No,
Thanks.
thank you, sir.
So I'm just going to make a few comments. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Miller for choosing Clearview Township for Water First. I think it's a real huge benefit to our community, and you're to be commended on that. So thank you. To Tatum's, I've worked with you guys many times. This is an excellent site plan with the site that you have in place. So I think it's a great job. I think it's really good that you've actually separated your entrances, because you're obviously dividing your business side from your receiving and warehousing side. So I think the plan works well. I do think that green space could involve some more parking, but I'm guessing that you've had to include that green space for satisfy the township. However, there is more room there for parking, I believe, as part of a negotiation. Andrew, we've had you up in front of us here lots of times. And what I really like about you is your common sense approach to everything. And I think that's why we have a lot in common. I'm here to try to save applicants money. And as a business in town that's investing in our town and our people and our country, quite frankly, I commend you, and I'll be supportive as much as I can. Planning department, I know that there's been a lot of give and take here, and I commend everyone on that. I think we need to go a little bit further here, because I think what we're talking about are fairly minor things, other than I can see a lot of the locals not happy about dust. As far as the turning and the truck traffic, I'm very well versed on the old IGA and across the road, and those trucks that back into the IGA come all the way across the Pizza Place parking lot to make that turn. So the 27 meters doesn't bother me whatsoever. The gravel, I think, is the biggest issue. So I think crushed asphalt could be your solution, and it's cost effective. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we have a motion in front of us, A and B, as written. Is there appetite to vote as written?
I think we have to.
Is there appetite to amend said motion before us? All right, let's discuss your possible amendment before the Miss Secretary starts writing.
I don't know how we we're doing this correctly, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, from an amendment perspective, from my perspective, I'm indifferent about the gravel. And if it is a council decision, then I think we should just leave it off for now and let them go to council during the site plan. As far as the driveway width is concerned, I think it's a sensible thing to do and I support it. So I would like to amend it to approve the driveway width, but at this time not approve the request for gravel at this time. And they can sort that out with council.
All right, given that you've said amendment, we will discuss the amendment only. So you have your recommendation, Madam Secretary, in front of you. Can we scroll back to the list of that one right there? So part A, which was to deny the variance for the maximum entrance width and the parking surface, the amended request is that maximum entrance width be deleted from that. So we would deny the part A would become a denial of gravel. Yes, Rosalind?
Sorry, I just thought I could maybe help simplify it for you. If you were just to take section out of the denies minor variance, the recommendation that was up there, if you were just to take sections 2.151 driveway width and just put put a line through it and add it to number 1 of the approves,
All right.
that might be the way to do it. It might be a little simpler. So if Emma could just pull up the recommendation.
You are definitely helping Madam Secretary here
Thank
to
you.
get this right.
Yeah, I think that's what you're looking at, right, Counselor or Mark? Yeah, committee
Yeah,
member.
that would be perfect. Thank you.
All right, so we have to do this properly. You're doing your job, Lori, very well. But on our side, on the voting side, we must vote on the amendment suggested. So the amendment suggested is 2.15-1 being pulled down to part B of the recommendation and be accepted. Is that is the vote before us at this moment in time to vote on the amendment of moving that down to the accepted column. All in favor? Carried. All right. On the motion as written, with the denial of the pavement, the acceptance of all other items that the applicant has asked for. Correct. You're tracking?
Yes.
Perfect. I can only move as fast as she can write. All right, so on the amended motion of denying the pavement, accepting all other items of their list, vote in support of said motion. Carried. All right. There is a 20-day appeal period. Just remind you that. There are lots of moving parts in this file. But I would strongly suggest looking at the grindings, I call them, of pavement and rolling them out in your site plan discussions with township down the road. But you're right, the width does not seem to be a problem for the committee and everything else that you asked for. So, thank you for such a long and accurate presentation and for the technical advice that we got from the gentleman online. You did a fine presentation. Almost got everything that you wanted. But we will hope that the site plan discussions go well for your charitable organization. Thank you very much for your time and effort into this. Yes? Oh, yeah. And then we have the last file of our day, which is the consent cancellation 25-041 on the same property. Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Chair. Consent cancellation file 2025-041, 8 and 10 Francis Street East, Water First. Here is a key map of the site. Next slide, please. The recommendation is that the Committee of Adjustment of the Township of Clearview hereby approves consent cancellation number 2025-041 with no conditions on the basis that it is in accordance with the Planning Act.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Can we get a motion and a seconder so far? Can we vote on the consent cancellation file? Carried. Your consent has been canceled, sir. With no conditions. All right. That concludes the public portion of the meeting. Under new business, do we have anything, Madam Secretary?
I don't believe so.
All right. When's our next meeting tentatively scheduled?
Wednesday, August 13th,
Awesome.
same time, same place.
Awesome. Get a motion to adjourn said meeting at 4:23. All in favor? Carried. Motion carried. Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.